Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I Never Told You, production of iHeartRadio. And it is time once again for another edition of Female First, which means we are once again joined by the wondrous, whimsical Yves. Welcome, Yves.
Ooh, sounds like I own like a candy factory somewhere.
It does, doesn't
me
it?
like that.
It's funny because I had two other adjectives I was going to describe you as, but my brain was like, this is what we're going with. And it could be because of the conversation we just had. We're always like, where in the world is Yves? What's going on with Yves? Can you tell the listeners what is going on with you?
Yeah, I do like to wonder and wander. The older I get, the more I like to wonder and wander. Don't really care about much else. No, I care about a lot, honestly, too much. It plagues me. But no, I'm in California right now. This is my first time spending extended time in Northern California. I'm in wine country. Which I'm not a big drinker, but I'm gonna drink. I'm gonna go visit something while I'm out here. So yeah, it's beautiful. The hills are healing. Okay, the sun is shining. We got a little bit of rain that came through and cooled things down for the last couple of days, but like barely any. It was nice. It's out in the patio in the rain, and I'm really enjoying the scenery out here for sure. Not enjoying the prices though. No thanks for that.
Also, lack of bugs, which we just discussed.
Yes. Lack of bugs, I do enjoy. I do. Yeah, I can't deal with it. I was telling Anney and Samantha that I'm so used to bugs in the South, and particularly water bugs, that I have been I've been jump scaring myself. I know everybody knows, like the black hair things. If you have like kinky hair like I do, max fro, a little ball fluff of hair on the floor can look like a roach at any time. So I'm jump scaring myself with balls of my own hair and little pockets of shadows. But I accept that. You know, there are a lot of things I'm really resilient about, and this is not one of them.
This is not one of them.
You know, you've got to accept who you are. I think that's good. I think that's, wise, which is what I was originally going to describe you as.
Wise. That's something. That's a word.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting to me because you are joining us on a low sleep schedule, and you were talking about sleeping outside after this. And I feel like that kind of relates in some ways to what we're going to talk about. But I also think sometimes I would romanticize kind of the sitting outside and reading with a book and, doing that. And then the bugs show up and it's suddenly not as romantic as I thought it would be.
The trauma, one of the many traumas of living in the South.
Yeah.
I mean, we definitely have to get prepared. When I was younger, it was the SOS Avon lotion. That was the secret ingredient.
For the mosquitoes?
Yeah, for the mosquitoes. So you smell real evergreen in the woods because you're trying to ward off all the bugs, but it doesn't always work.
Yeah, did that actually work? All the grannies say it does, and they still swear by it. But I don't know if it's just like...
I honestly can't remember if it
works.
actually worked because I'm pretty sure I still had tons of bug bites. So I don't feel like it did. But then the tale was that it worked because I could have had more, but I feel like I was lied to.
Oh.
Yeah, hard to prove.
There's no real way.
Yeah. Speaking of resilient things, the mosquitoes, far more resilient than I am against bugs.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, okay. I swear, listeners, this does kind of relate to what we're talking about. Very tangentially. And also now I'm determined, Yves, that you bring on an entomologist. I think that will be very funny.
Okay. Yeah. We haven't broached that topic yet here. Yeah, let's do it.
Sometime in the future.
I won't look at any of the pictures.
Okay.
No. I'll just skip over that.
Well, in the meantime, who have you brought for us today, Yves?
Today we're talking about Mary S. Peake. who was the first Black teacher hired by the American Missionary Association. She did some super cool pioneering things and like that were very important and impacted a lot of people. So I'm excited to talk about her today.
Yes. Another really fascinating and important history. So I'm excited to hear about her. Shall we get into it?
Yeah. So she was born Mary Smith Kelsey in 1823 in Norfolk, Virginia. Her mother was Sarah, who was described as a light-skinned, free Black woman. And her dad was a white Englishman. And they weren't married. But when Mary was 6 years old, her mother sent her to Alexandria, Virginia. At the time, she was able to get schooling, although that would change very soon. Alexandria at the time was then a part of DC. And so she went to a Black school there, got her schooling. And while she was there, she lived with her uncle and aunt, John and Mary Payne. And they lived in a house owned by Rollins Fowle, which is a very posh name, like Rollins Fowle, okay? Who, according to the book Mary S. Peake, The Colored Teacher at Fortress Monroe by Lewis Lockwood, he bought enslaved people, freed them, and set them up in business. So I didn't delve too deep into this man's history, so I don't know the ins and outs of that, y'all. I would be interested to know his specific story as well. But so I'm just saying, I'm not clear exactly what set them up in business mean, what the extent of that is. But that book that I just mentioned, Mary S. Peake, The Colored Teacher at Fortress Monroe by Lewis Lockwood, that'll come up many more times in this episode. He wrote a biography about her. Like he is very short. So if y'all want to go read it online, y'all can go online and read it for free right now. You can like go on archive.org and it's there. So it's not an issue to get if you want to read it and learn a little bit more about her. But just so y'all know, that's where some of the information is coming from. But yeah, so John Payne was one of the enslaved people whom Rollins had freed. And later, Mary Kelsey went to another school that was taught by a white Englishman at the First Baptist Colored Church. And eventually Mary had to leave that school. But outside of her schooling, Mary was already pretty religious. She would memorize parts of the Bible at the time, and that'll come back up in her life later on as well. So she left school at age 16, and then she went back home to Norfolk. And in the book, there is a story about Mary going to a family cemetery near her house at night. Is this what you were referring to, Anney, with the sleeping outside?
No, but I'm very eager to hear about it.
Okay. That's what I was thinking about. I'm like, yeah, she did. But that is there's a very specific moment in her life. That was also very interesting to me when I was reading the book because it was kind of odd. Okay, I'll say it and then I'll come back to that thought. But yeah, so if you read the book, it talks about how she would go to, at night, leave the house and go to like a family cemetery that was near the house. And she would pray and she would sing there. And there's like a little anecdote in there about the neighbors who would be like, oh, wow, she's so heavenly and angelic. But at this time of night, what is she doing out there? I mean, it's a really nice serenade, but wow. So it was quite odd to me. Not that it's like, not as a practice of hers, like, because I mean, do what you do, get it how you live. But just that out of all of the things in her life that could have been remarked upon, this thing was one that like left a mark enough to be talked about in the book. Interesting. It also was like one of those stories, if you read a lot of these people's lives, things are embellished in a lot of ways. They're very flowery. They're very hagiographic. It's like this person was really uplifted in the text, which is like, I get it, I get it, but I don't know how much of that was that, because there was also like a little bit of dialogue in there. So there seemed to be some liberties probably taken with what exactly people said. But regardless, a little interesting tidbit about Mary. So Mary joined the First Baptist Church on Butte Street. Her pastor was Reverend James A. Mitchell, who led the church from the time of Nat Turner's uprising in 1831 until his death, which was around 1852. Many of the church members there were Black, and it's said in the book that like Pastor Mitchell opposed slavery, but he kept his opinion private. This wasn't unusual for pastors at the time, so they could continue to do what they did. If he was vocal at all about his opposition to slavery, or if it's an opinion that he only held in private. Sometimes it was kind of implied in sermons. Sometimes the congregants knew it, and then so unclear about that. But either way, in the book, Lockwood said that he reached out to a deacon of the church when he was in Norfolk, because he visited there later. And the deacon said about Mary that she, quote, had a strong desire for the conversion of souls and was often found exhorting them to repentance. Religious language is intense a lot of the time. And my mind automatically goes to horror when I think conversion of souls. But I get that. That means that she was just very pious. She was faithful, and she wanted people to come over onto the Christian side. So in 1847, Mary's mother married Thompson Walker and bought a house in Hampton, Virginia. Thompson, just for a little bit of his background, was an enslaved foreman at a plantation and the founder of Hampton's second oldest Black church, which was Zion Baptist Church. So Mary worked as a seamstress. She made clothes to make money. And she also created an organization that was called the Daughters of Zion that helped people who were poor or who were sick. Now, in Virginia at the time, like it was in many other places, it was illegal for Black folks to gather and get an education. So Mary began teaching Black people out of her own home. She even taught her stepfather. And so in 1851, she married Thomas Peake. And he was previously enslaved, and he was freed, but he had a house and he had a farm, and he worked as a servant at a local hotel. So Mary continued on teaching, and eventually in 1856, Mary and Thomas had a daughter. Her name was Hattie, aka Daisy. I don't know where she got that. I don't know where the nickname came from, but I saw her more referred to as Daisy than I saw her referred to as Hattie. But yeah, the Civil War, the pivotal moment in history that Mary was in the area. You're like, it came out of nowhere, Samantha.
in the area.
What is this thing? Okay, what is this event?
Yeah, this is years later. I don't know much about that period between 1856 and 1861. But the Civil War broke out, and Mary was in Hampton. And in August of 1861, Confederates set Hampton on fire. So Mary had to flee her home, and it was destroyed in the chaos. I think it was the day after she left. So I think they were I think it was August 5th or 6th. They were led to evacuate. And then the day after that, they came through and burned things down. And she lost her home. I think her husband even lost 2 homes from my understanding. But either way, they lost their home. They lost where they were living. And so not long after the Civil War started, Union troops occupied Hampton, and then they ended up setting up a base at Fort Monroe, which I'm sure a lot of the people who are listening to this podcast know a little bit about. And a lot of enslaved people fled to Fort Comfort seeking freedom. And in the summer of 1861, more than 900 adults and children sought refuge at the fort. I can only imagine what that was like, the mix of emotions, how emotionally charged it would have been there for people who had just been through so much tragedy, for years, but also on their journey to get there. And then also arriving with just utter hope. And also camaraderie once you got there with other people who were dealing with the same thing, waiting to know what happened next. I mean, I just can't even imagine. But at the time, all the people who got there were declared contraband of war. Okay. And the commander at the fort ordered them not to be returned to slavery. And of course, education was very important and a priority for people who were newly freed, because a lot of them didn't know how to read, didn't know how to write. So they needed an education to move through life and to move through their new life. And so Mary began teaching them under a large oak tree near the fort. And I wonder how that felt. Imagine I'm in my head, I'm there, because I'm thinking about being under a tree and things being so different so quickly. Like there's so much upheaval, but then there's so much hope at the same time. But yeah, so anyway, the American Missionary Association is part of this whole story. A couple decades prior, abolitionists had founded this association. They denounced slavery. They didn't like how Protestant churches stayed neutral regarding slavery. And in September of 1861, the association sent Lewis Lockwood, the author of the book that I was telling y'all about, to Fort Monroe. That's where a lot of these observations come from, as a missionary to the newly freed Black folks. Some of the children there told Lewis about Mary, according to his account. This is how it went. I'm thinking, okay, these children are telling you about Mary, but like, you didn't see her when you walked up. Like she wasn't around town. The kids had to tell you about her. Not quite understanding that. It's not like it's not like it was a really huge place, but either way, Mary ended up being hired by or partnering with the association to open up her school in a cottage that was right next to the oak. And so the kids didn't have far to go. The school was in the front room of the first story of this cottage. And then her family apartments were in the front room of the second story of the cottage. And Mary began teaching the first day of school for these Black children. Her first appears in her story. And classes started on September 17th, 1861. And the school was pretty close to Point Comfort, which is where the first group of enslaved Africans arrived in Virginia about 2.5 centuries prior to this time. But yeah, so it's interesting to think about what day-to-day life would have looked like for them at the time. In the book, Lewis Lockwood's observations as this person who was there for a while, but like was also like an outsider, who came in from somewhere else and can go back to somewhere else. But he talked about how Hampton was becoming a thriving free Black settlement. He said, and here's a quote from the book, "It seems fit that this place, where injustice has been sanctioned by law, should be converted into a sanctuary of justice, righteousness, and free education. We consider that we are here trying the very highest experiment with ex-slaves. They are here emphatically turned loose and are shifting for themselves, doing their own head work and handwork." End quote. I was kind of feeling his authorship in this quote a little bit. Like there's some ups and downs. It's some peaks and valleys. It's a roller coaster, okay? Because I have so many thoughts about this. I mean, this is me being my over analytical writer self, but like the interesting thing to me about this is like right after this quote, he talks about how this place is like, it's particularly charged. I can't remember the exact language that he used, but it's like some spiritual language around this place specifically that is very interesting to me because yes, a lot happened here, but also there are so many places that are charged in similar ways in the South. So I'm curious about that. And also I was a little, the word highest experiment with ex-slaves didn't really fully sit right with me because there is a huge history of terrible experimentation on Black people in the United States. So I'm like, I don't know if I want y'all to experiment with people. I don't know if I want to experiment anyway, even if it's something that's considered a little bit more moral and righteous. I don't, but at the same time, I get that it's language. I mean, I don't think that is not the, I'm definitely reading that through my 2025 Black American eyes is what I'm saying in that case. But still, didn't sit right with me.
I mean, it does still feel like it might be a connotation that he doesn't see them quite human.
I agree with you, Samantha. I agree with you. Because I think it's just inbuilt. And so like when you're already referring, you're considering people who were enslaved property, even if you didn't agree with slavery, that's how actual people were viewed at the time. And then after that, once they were free, they came here and they're contraband. So there's still items, they're still compared to inanimate objects, things that aren't sentient and don't have, feelings. So yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it's both do. I think it's poor choice of wording, but also like something that I'm particularly triggered by because of the history that I have lived through after all this time. And it was just natural for that not even to register for white folks because that's how they viewed them. But yeah, I also that the next line, I'll be done thinking about this quote right after this. But I do want to talk about this because I do like the language in that last line where he says, they are here emphatically turned loose and are shifting for themselves. Isn't that a little jazzy? Like, isn't it giving jazz? Because emphatically, it's like that there feels like there's some agency there. There feels like there's a lot of activity. Like it's not like that word experiment that just came before, which is why I was giving him a little bit more length because it's like, it feels more powerful.
It feels like a celebration.
Yeah. Turned loose, that feels fluid. And then it's shifting for themselves. It's like, so he's acknowledging that this isn't just me as a missionary coming in and being like, here's what I'm going to do to save the people. This is how I'm going to change them. This is how I'm going to civilize them. He did acknowledge their own head work and handwork. And I'm like, I got to use that now. Head work and handwork. I like that. So I'm going to start using, if you hear me say head work and handwork, know that this white man in the 1800s is where it came from.
This is the beginning for you.
No, I still phrase this all the time for people that I just like, I run through my head. Like I don't really use them in places, but I latch onto things like this.
Me too. Like, oh, I like that. I like that phrase. Let me highlight it. Where's my highlighter?
So Mary was on a mission and she was teaching these adults and children. So her school at first only had about 6 students, but in a few days, she had about 50 or 60 students, including her own 5-year-old daughter. So Mary, we all need to know your sales funnel. What was your marketing like?
Without social media, too. Come on.
Yeah. How'd you do that, girl? No, I'm just kidding. No, she taught reading, writing, and math. And she also led some religious instruction because, like I said, she's been religious since day one, basically. And she was teaching the students to sing hymns as well. Like even memorization of stuff of religious passages wasn't enough. They had to go farther than that. But anyway, she was teaching in all kinds of ways and ways that were important to her because there is a big hoopla, of course, from this source that is a missionary about her dedication to Christianity and dedication to spreading the good word. So it was a part of her life, though. And that was a type of instruction that she considered important and as important as the rest of the instruction that everybody was getting. Like there was a quote about her saying something like, in preparation, as important as preparatory work is, work leading up to the Sabbath work is as important as that. So all of that was part of her instruction. And then soon Mary, the pioneer, kept doing her thing. Other schools opened. And she even began teaching at this evening school for Black adults. Of course, a lot of the adults coming in couldn't read. And so she taught adults to read as well. In her evening classes, she had about 20 adults. And She also helped people from the American Missionary Association start schools in Newport News and Norfolk. And these were some of the first schools in the South where Black teachers taught big classes of Black people. But unfortunately, although she lived an illustrious life up until this point and clearly was doing important work at a pivotal time in a pivotal place, this part of her life didn't last long. She got sick. She had to stay in bed. In the book, they talk about how her students would gather around her even when she was in bed. I'm not sure the extent that she was actually teaching them from her bed, but she seemed to have been doing some sort of instruction, or at least just like guidance, or the students were supporting her. Unclear, but they would gather around her when she was in bed. A doctor did recommend that she stop teaching, but it was around the time there was this big Christmas festival at the school. A little bit after that, Mary got increasingly sick. She was coughing more, she was tired, and she was weak. And it turned out that Mary had tuberculosis. She had to stop teaching around January of 1862, and she died on February 22nd, 1862. She was buried in Elmerton Cemetery in Hampton. But that tree that she taught students under, that's also where people gathered to hear the first reading of the Emancipation Proclamation in the South. It's called the Emancipation Oak. And Hampton Normal and Agricultural Institute, which was called then, is now Hampton University, was founded there in 1868 by leaders of the American Missionary Association. So that all that is on Hampton, this whole area. And that's the story of Mary Peake.
Yes, the oak tree was what I was talking about. Learning.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. I didn't put two and two together. You're smarter than me.
No. You had a great deep cut ready to go. That was excellent.
Giving her more credit.
Yes. And there is, listeners, if you want to look it up, there's a lot, like you said, Yves, like you can read the biography. There's a lot of stuff you can find written about her. And it is interesting, as we always talk about, kind of taking into context all of the history going on and who's writing it and all of that. But we've also talked before about the power of knowledge and reading and all of that stuff. So just what she was doing was so important. And I didn't really realize until you were talking about it, because I'm out of that world now. But we are sort of in back to school season.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
so it's kind of well timed.
It's time. Yeah,
like we're all going to the. Oh yeah, what time of year is this?
That school thing.
Oh yeah,
remember that?
Yeah,
that's funny. I mean, in general, I think when we talk about the power of education and why groups of people don't want certain groups of people to have that education, that power, and it's kind of an ever-growing conversation and never stopping, never ending, that is, because it's still true. Like, what she was doing was giving power back to her community in an amazing way. And I say short life because I'm like, damn, she was young. Yeah. She did so much for her people, for her community rather, that it shows. Like, it spread the schools that opened after her, and that showed that they were thriving. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's that conversation of like, yeah, this is what it looks like when we actually take that in and understand the power of education, the power of learning and growth.
Yeah. Imagine fleeing your home because of an unprecedented war that a lot of lives hinge upon, going like right down the street and being like, I'm about to teach some kids. I'm good. I think, yeah, I'm good. At least good enough to pass along some knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, shout out to her. I mean, seriously, like it seems like you have to have great resolve and dedication, like commitment to the cause to do what she did.
I wonder too, I haven't researched her at all because I'm like excited when you come and tell us these people that we should know, but we don't know. So we're excited. But I wonder how many people have connections with her, like people who she taught to read and that has passed this type of legacy down to their family. I would love to hear about that. That would be amazing to see those connections.
Yeah, I would too. I'm not sure, but I imagine it exponentially. It was an exponential situation,
right.
you know?
Yeah.
Anybody knows of anybody, let us know.
Yeah, that would be cool. Because I do feel like, hopefully most of us, if we're lucky, you have that one teacher that really left an impression on you or changed your life. And maybe it was something really small, but it really stuck with you. So I'm sure that there are some people out there that hopefully have had her legacy passed down and maybe have heard stories about her. So that would be really cool.
Yeah, it would. I have 90 teachers like that.
Yeah.
90 teachers over the course of my life who, from the smallest support to the biggest support, left huge marks on my life. So always love bringing a teacher. And I definitely will be bringing another teacher at some point. I have before. We'll be bringing another teacher on because, they deserve some upliftment.
They absolutely do. And it really is. It's so valuable. Well, thank you so much, Yves, as always, for coming on. I hope that you have a wonderful bug-free nap after this.
Bug-free.
I'm wired now. I'm up. I'm thinking about bugs, so I'm up.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Well, where can the good listeners find you?
Y'all can go to my website, which is yvesjeffcoat.com. That's spelled YVESJEFFCOAT.com. Y'all can also go to Instagram. I'm on there sometimes. My Instagram is Not Apologizing. And you can also find me on many other episodes of Stuff Mom Never Told You, talking about these female first, about women in history who had awesome accomplishments.
Yes. Yes. And listeners, go check out all of that stuff if you haven't already. And if you would like to contact us, you can. You can email us at hello@stuffinevertoldyou.com. You can find us on Blue Sky at Mom Stuff Podcast or on Instagram and TikTok at Stuff I Never Told You. We're also on YouTube. We have new merchandise at Cotton Bureau, and we have a book you can get wherever you get your books. Thanks as always to our super producer, Christina, our executive producer, Maya, and our contributor, Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.